Hey everybody, this is Crypto and Cocktails, the new podcast from tensevencapital. My name is Tyler, this is the man of the hour.
Tim Nihill, founder and CEO.
So what we're going to be doing here is basically discussing a variety of topics in the financial world, as well as, some more informal stuff down the line. We really don't know what the hell is going to happen, but also we kind of do. It's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, fantastic.
So the main reason we're doing this, well, we'll get into that in a little bit.
Episode 1.
Why do you think, I probably should ask you this, why do you think we want the world to know more about us?
Why we're doing the podcast and why we're releasing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. A couple of reasons, I guess. One, it's the new wave of where everyone's and everything's going. Part of it is it's an opportunity to share information collectively on what we see on a day-to-day basis from our perspective. The second for us is it's an easy way to channel and pass information on what we're seeing to even our current clients and prospects that we're working with. And the other part of it too is I think there's an opportunity for people like us and an organization like us to fill the gap that we see in the marketplace that exists today when it comes in terms of information and what's out there from a financial news perspective, if you will. Whether it's traditional financial channels like CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Business, YouTube, podcasts on Apple Radio, Spotify, things like that, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, which I guess is Meta, and all those different channels. And we've been really kind of studying the internet for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And studying social media for at least 5 years now, playing around with it in many capacities. And I think there's an opportunity to fill in the gap that exists with when you have all these people that are out there that are, hey, I'm a financial expert or billionaire or whatever, and here's how I did it. A lot of this stuff is just, quite frankly, clickbait. And at the same time, it doesn't really translate to people. How do I do this every day? Right? If it's my day-to-day life, it's like, okay, great, go buy real estate. Well, how?
Yeah.
Right?
We're going to get into that a little bit later as well. But, one thing you're going to notice, if you haven't already watched our content, definitely go check it out on our socials. We'll put all the links in the description. But, one of our big focuses is really a client-focused approach, which is very different from a lot of other wealth management firms just in general. But yeah, we'll get into that as time goes on during this episode and in future episodes. That being said, I think it is important, for the world to know not just what we are, but who we are in a larger sense. I'm kind of wondering, obviously we'll get into, the more nitty gritty of, our backstory and your backstory in later episodes. But I'm wondering if you can kind of talk a little bit just on an introductional level, who you are, how did you get into the business, and, what about this business appeals to you?
Oh, man. Okay, so obviously Tim Nihill, yeah, I'm glad to be here. No, I think when it comes to finance, I started tracking the markets when I was really, really young. And
I think 7 years old, right?
Something like that. So born and raised in Buffalo, New York, across the street from Cas Park, and I can still vividly remember tracking stocks and reading the business section in the Buffalo News. And the funny thing about that, think about this, with all of the information that we have access to and we're inundated with on a day-to-day basis, like the business section was in the Buffalo News every other day. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't get stock prices every day. You got them every other day. And I just remember tracking stocks. Like my father worked at National Fuel, so I tracked that. He worked at Johnson Controls for time. And I knew we owned stock and he owned stock in that, so I tracked that. Geico was another one I can vividly remember tracking. And at the time, Geico always had, their name was in capital letters, like GEICO. And I just have always had a love for money and finance. And after 3.5 years of studying, engineering, I didn't like it. I was bored out of my mind. And so I just went back to the thing I loved. And here I am. I had long corporate career and started in the business, graduated from school, moved to Boston, started with Prudential when they tried to do financial planning. And at the time that fell through because they were trying to copy the American Express model, which is now Ameriprise. And just had some fantastic opportunities in the corporate world. And finally, because I'm not really someone that can work for other people, I don't have that mindset. I decided to strike off on my own, and eventually we've evolved into a family office, and now we're 10-7 Capital.
Yeah. So I think along that same line, one of the beautiful things I like is how you're so varied in not just your backstory, but also what you like to do. What would you say? I mean, what are your hobbies like? Introduce us a little bit more to Tim the man. What do you like to do kind of outside of the business?
What do I like to do? A lot of things. I read and I study everything. Like, I just have a curious mind, almost like Curious George. Right?
Curious Tim.
Yeah, Curious Tim.
Great. Now they're all going to call you the comments are going to be full of Curious Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I'm into a lot of really interesting things. In my perspective, these are the things that actually pop out and are interesting to me. Things like metaphysics, quantum physics, believe it or not. I'm incessant over the energy of things and the spirituality of things and meditations and things like that. I love running. I actually was a runner for a long time and took some time off for that, but I always like doing half marathons, triathlons. Part of me misses, especially being up north sometimes in the winter. One of my favorite runs was the Miami half because it broke up the winter, and it was always on Super Bowl Sunday, so you could go have a good run, be in Miami, watch the Super Bowl for that weekend. And the other thing for me is I love to play golf. I love to hang out with friends, love cocktails, obviously, and I love to cook and hang out with my family.
Well, we cook in more than one way.
We cook in a lot of different ways. But for me and my wife, between us we have 5 children. We love watching all you grow and helping you all succeed. And at the end of the day, my primary passion is finance. I mean, every day I wake up, it's like I have 10-7 Capital on my brain, and it's nonstop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're gonna be seeing a lot of golfing here as well. In particular, he's part of, like he said, he's part of a golf family. We're gonna be seeing a lot of golfing over here. You may see it in some future episodes. We got some stuff planned, so stay tuned for that. Definitely be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And speaking of, fun stuff that we have planned, do you want to kind of segue into the drink? We got the drinks right here.
Yeah.
So this is part of the, the whole model, crypto and cocktails. We didn't want it to just be a standard show, standard podcast, because the market's full of that crap. You've all seen enough of that crap. We have a different outlook, so this podcast needs to have a different outlook. And frankly, one of the things we love is fine cocktails. So I have made some here. This is a tropical rum punch. We're going to put the recipe on the screen right now. So have a look. Cheers. Absolutely. Oh, wow, indeed.
Bumbu? That's fantastic tasting.
You can make it. I mean, you can make it with any rum. Like, I've just put on...
You have this, you earn a 3-mile run the next day.
Yeah, exactly. But you can make this with any rum. It tastes amazing. It's, not super strong, so it's very much a comfort drink. But, yeah, we're filming from beautiful sunny Naples, Florida right now, and we'll kind of get more into that later. But, yeah, this is very much a, you're on vacation in Florida or somewhere in the South or somewhere tropic. This is a great drink just to have as a comfort drink. So,
I mean, I could see you sitting in the Caribbean or on a beach with something like that. It's fantastic. And quite frankly, we've been in the crypto space for I have to think about this now. We started like 2017, 2018. So especially over the last 3 to 4 years, I think if you've been in crypto, you've probably had to have a cocktail or two just because of the dynamics of the industry and what's been going on. And as we're seeing today, that all of the work that everybody has put into this industry and into the blockchain and into the underlying technologies, now with all the changing of the guard across the world, everybody that's gotten into this space is going to be very, very, very happy, because it is absolutely going to wipe through the entire world and change every single segment of our lives that it can, all the way down to the food you buy at a grocery store. That's how insanely next generation blockchain, Web3, and the new wave of technology is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now, instead of having a celebratory or having a cocktail like, oh, I can't believe it's so down and blah, 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 now it's a celebration like, woohoo!
Yeah, exactly.
Time.
Yeah, no, exactly. We can kind of get more, so that's one of the questions I wanted to ask as well, because I think a lot of people, they're going to see crypto in the title, and they're going to be wondering a lot of things, like, they're gonna hear your story, they're gonna hear what we are, they're gonna think, okay, what kind of scam is this? What kind of scam is this firm operating? Especially in my generation, crypto tends to get a really bad rap. Sure. Something that I don't think is entirely fair. I'm kind of wondering, so I know you used to be a skeptic on crypto. Can you kind of walk everybody through, that process? What changed your mind, and what really appeals to you about cryptocurrency as a concept? I mean, obviously, we don't just do cryptocurrency here. We are a wealth management firm. We have a lot of divisions. We have a great team over here. But, one of the industries that we do dabble in is the cryptocurrency industry. So I wonder if you kind of, walk people through that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first and foremost, we'll get away from wealth management. We're a family office, right? Like, we manage our own money first. Everything that we do with clients' money, we've already done on our own. Like, we always invest before we invest other people's money, for a lot of different reasons, and that's something to talk about, and we can kind of discuss in more detail. And our services is we provide family office services to families, and we could discuss that whenever you want.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
There's a whole gambit. Like, crypto is, 5%, 10% of what we do, maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. But the long story short is, had a long time ago, was in Boston. I had my next door neighbor. His name's Chris Galizio, good friend of mine. He used to run Fidelity's Focus Large Cap Fund, and I think he took it from like 20 million to 5 billion or 7 billion. And what happens when you're managing money at such a large level, like you're a State Street, of BlackRock, and Vanguard, and Fidelity, you have all these rules and regulations you have to take into account, including like ownership, right? So collectively, you can only own like 2.5% to 5% of a public company stock as an organization. Because if you're the owner of the stock, as has happened through the evolution of ETFs, et cetera, the ownership of those stocks and those companies are no longer the individuals. It's the corporations. So at BlackRock, we were like, okay, we have the owners, and we're the owners of the stock, not the ETF holders. So we own the ownership rights, and we own the shareholder rights, and we own the voting rights. So there are regulations to prevent financial companies and investment companies from acquiring too much ownership to really drive what a company is doing, and kind of driving their future, what their executives are, yada yada yada, all the way down the line. It's like driving the actual operations of the business through stock ownership. So there are regulations out there that present that. But long story short, he had to leave because it becomes very hard. For example, if you want to buy Amazon and you're on Fidelity's system and 300 other Fidelity investments own Amazon too, you can't really put the money where you want it to go. So it becomes very constraining for portfolio managers. Long and short of it, he was an anti-crypto guy, anti-Bitcoin. And so had a lunch with him, and had a friend of mine who was very, very early into the crypto space, and pro-crypto, anti-crypto. And I just watched this ping pong match, back and forth, or tennis match, and it was 3.5 hours of back and forth. And at the end of it, the only thing that my buddy Chris could hold his ground on was, it doesn't have intrinsic value. And I said, yes, I disagree with that, because code is intrinsic. Code exists. Computer exists. You're watching me through code right now, right? Like that camera, these microphones, that computer, my phone, our entire life is code, right?
Yeah.
So yes, code has actual intrinsic value. It's just that people think because you can't necessarily touch it per se, like you can grab the microphone of your phone, that it does not exist, but that's not necessarily true. So I said, okay, there might be something here. And I'd seen Bitcoin when it first came out. I didn't think anything of it. And then I started to really do my homework. And I think similar to like what Michael Saylor at MicroStrategy have, you just have this moment that when you see what this is, it's a completely democratized system of finance. Everybody can play. And then you apply it on the scale of, holy crap, how many billion people? 8.1, 8.2 billion people.
Roughly, yeah.
Across the world can participate in finance equally. It's completely democratized. And I don't know what happens. You have like goosebumps, and it just is mind-blowing. And then you're like, I as soon as I saw it and it hit me, I went, holy crap. Like, this is the future of the world. This is where we're going. And now you're seeing it. AI is coming out, and nobody is ready for artificial intelligence. And don't get twisted. It's been around since the 1970s. IBM's been using it since the 70s, right? Governments have been using AI for decades. Quantum computing has been around for decades. It's just now coming to the masses, right? And the case in point is, after I saw this, I went, this is something I think is going to be very, very important at the future. It's going to be life-altering for a lot of people. And at the same time, I think it allows the opportunity for the next generations, and even our generation, to acquire and achieve generational wealth and success. So I think it's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially, going back to what you said about our family office business, generational wealth is very important to us. I think in a moment I'm going to ask you about that. But yeah, that in especially is very important to us for a variety of reasons. I think let's get to that, just because a lot of people may not know exactly what a family office is. Because I mean, you mentioned it earlier. We're definitely not like other wealth management firms. I would say first and foremost, our approach is very client focused. I think you mentioned one time that a lot of what most firms do is it's a money game, whereas we're much more client focused. We have this very big family. We like to call it the 10-7 family. You can kind of get into that, but I think walk everybody through what a family office is, and what our model is, and how we implement that, what we do basically.
Yeah, so to start on that, we'll start off with family office versus traditional wealth management, because we started off as homage to my family as a traditional advisory wealth management firm. And that game is completely acquire assets, charge fees. So when you boil it down to financial planning, wealth management, it's more investment management, and they overlay financial planning on top of that. I've had my CFP since like 2007, and quite frankly, I don't hold a lot of value in that designation. I think it's been so watered down, and as I go back to my mathematical mindset, I can tell you that they're running financial plans, and 100% of the Monte Carlo simulations that are being run will never happen. It doesn't matter what that piece of paper says. All of those numbers will never happen. So I just looked at it, I'm like, this isn't what we do, right? And so we just kind of evolved and said, well, if you take someone like a Bill Gates or an Elon Musk or who else is out there that is a billionaire, multi-billionaire, really, really uber wealthy, sovereign wealth funds, what are they doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing? How are they doing it? What are they investing in? And then, you study the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts, and you're like, okay, so they've been able to pass on money for 5 to 6 to 7 generations, right? The average financial plan and the average family that accumulates wealth, which we have traditionally measured as a millionaire, which no longer exists. Like billionaires today are the millionaires of the 80s. So like if you want that wealth, you have to be a billionaire now versus a traditional millionaire. Millionaire's like middle class. So I just looked at it and I said, okay, what are they doing? And how do we bring that to ourselves and our clients? And then more importantly, you get into it and you say, okay, so if I can help people structure and families structure themselves as a family office where everything that a dollar touches is accounted for, is managed, and then collectively put together. So when you have the passing on of the older generations, the money movement is seamless, taxes are seamless, the tax bills are completely managed and mitigated. And so instead of the average family having generational wealth go away in 2 to 3 generations, you can now extend it into 5, 6, 7, 8 generations, right? And then on top of that, think about this. If I get to the point where I can become my own family bank, and instead of going out to a bank and giving, banks your own personal assets, your own financial assets, and then having all of your family have to borrow from a bank, pay interest to a bank, always money going out, money going out, money going out. What if all that money stays in? Right? You need a car loan. Okay, go to the family bank. Great, we'll underwrite it, we'll write it off, and all that money collectively stays in the family. And it's almost like, think about it, because your mom's from India, right? So the Indian mindset is, hey, all of the family collectively works together, lives under one roof in a community together. You're all using your collective assets together.
Yeah, that's how we do things over on our end.
Where in our world in America, it's, hey, you're 18, get out of the house, right? Good luck. There's a lot to say for when families can collectively get their money all working for them. It just takes the entire dynamic to the next level. Because first you have to have the people in the family to build it. And then you have to have them secure it for the next generations. And the next generations honor it, but at the same time, because they have the freedom of not having to worry about bills being paid and I have to save and I have to get a job, they have the freedom to take what was built to the next level and expand upon it. And it just becomes this ever-expanding thing that really has no terminal life, right? It can be passed on generation after generation after generation, and then you just leverage technology to pull it all together so that all of the family members are pulled together, and then all of the professionals are pulled together, and everything that a family has is in one place, it's looked at, it's managed, and it's easy, right? Like, what's the number one thing uber wealthy people value the most? Their time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Their time. Do you think Elon Musk is out there stock picking for his investment account or retirement?
Yeah, he's got a guy who does that for him.
He doesn't waste his time. He'll come across and say, hey, here's a couple good ideas I came across I want to invest in, and they'll do the research and execute it. Yes, we can't do it. Here's what we think. Here's how we do it. Now let's go do it, right?
Yeah, we're the guy.
Right. Versus, I'm going to try to do this on my own and blah, 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 and I'll go to Fidelity, Vanguard, whatever, Schwab. And if you look at the numbers, on average, people that do things on their own average 4+% less in returns year over year over year. right? So even with AI and technology that's coming along, it doesn't mean everybody's going to be able to embrace finance and personal investing. Some can do it on their own, most cannot. And we just help families do it. And then at the same time, from our perspective, we're risk managers, right? So now we look at risk on a generational level. Here are the grandparents, here are the parents, here are the children, here are the great-grandchildren, analyzing risk across generations, mitigating all generational risk, and then taking risk where the risk should be taken.
Yeah.
And voila, family office.
Just put a nice bow on it.
Put a nice bow on it.
So that being said, great segue. Let's put a nice bow on this. What do you think, if you had to sum everything up, just in terms of your outlook and what we want to achieve with this podcast, we want the world to know, that kind of stuff. What would you say you want everybody to take away from not just this episode, but just in general? And then also, what would you say you want people to look forward to as far as the future of this podcast goes? Because there is a bright future. We got a lot of stuff planned. You're going to want to stay tuned for that.
Yeah. I think in my homework that I've done, I think there's a huge gap in the market. And I think there's an opportunity for professionals like us to come in and really talk about the execution of ideas, right? It's one thing to have a plan, but you have to execute that plan mercilessly. Sorry. You have to execute, right? And I think for everyone that's out there looking at, I have my algos going on Instagram and Twitter, which I guess is X now, YouTube and other media channels. It's like, okay, if I'm sitting here and I'm in an undervalued, underserviced market and I have a net worth of at least 500,000 to 20 million, a completely underserviced market, even up to 50 million, believe it or not, they're all underserviced. How do I get to the next level? Like, for those people that are out there, if you want to do it, great. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. Like, people hate on the people that want to, be the traditional 80s millionaire, if you will. For people that want to go to, they want to have 50 million, they want to have 100 million, they want $1 billion because they just want the freedom, right, for their families. And there's a lot to be said for that. You look at the Live Tour players. Everyone hates the Live Tour players. I understand 1,000,000% why. I would have taken that check myself. I don't want to grind on the PGA. I secure family wealth and generational wealth by signing and committing for 3, 4, 5 years to play golf casually. Fine, I'm in. Right? The trophy doesn't mean that much when you're comparing it to the financial freedom for my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
It's what you're putting on the table for your family.
Right.
And that's what we focus on.
And that's my perspective. That's my personal feeling. That's what drives me every day is I'm not doing this for me. So, there's a lot of reasons behind this as to why we do what we do. And we have a lot of like-minded people coming to us because they do feel the same way. They're like, hey man, I built this from the ground up. And now how do I secure it for myself, my family, my wife, my children, my grandchildren? And we're going to take the strategies and the actual execution and talk about the day-to-day stuff, right? Good, bad, and different. And we're going to talk about applying that to help people, right? Oh, I should get into real estate, right? Everyone's like, buy real estate. Okay, how? Right? I'm as an individual going to run out and buy a condo in Florida to rent it? And I crunched every number in every market down here in Florida now. East Coast, West Coast. And the concept is great, but you're going to get murdered in insurance and you're going to get murdered on HOAs. And people are buying condos, and let's say they're getting them for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, maybe more per se, depending on what you want to hit for your target and the locations. But okay, so my if I finance the whole thing and my monthly payment is $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and I'm getting nailed with assessments and HOA fees of 60 grand a year, I don't care what you have coming in for rental, you're not covering your costs. So now if I'm that person playing in that game and I'm like, how do I get in real estate? Well, there are different types of strategies that you don't get at your Fidelities and your Schwabs of the world that give you access.
Well, you get them here.
Right. Some are publicly traded, some are private. Some are pooled investments, some are private investments. So how do you get into these strategies and find these strategies? On top of that, the other thing is the messaging will be different. Like, we're going to talk about anything and everything that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about, not just finance, not just crypto. We're gonna talk about, what we did on a certain day. We're gonna talk about the weather. We're gonna talk about golf. We're gonna talk about pro wrestling. We're gonna talk about football.
I can't believe wrestling's going mainstream. It's incredible.
Get on the train.
I know.
Yeet.
I don't even know what that means. I mean, the other day he walks into a hotel and he has a yeet shirt on, and the guys at the front and gals at the front counter all go yeet to him. I'm like,
it's a movement, man.
I guess so.
Get on board.
Right. So
we're gonna be talking about a lot of stuff here, And
I mean, a lot of it, yeah. It's gonna be kind of word on the street. Here's what's happening. We're gonna have people that live and breathe this stuff every day talk about the ins and outs, and we'll have characters on here because we don't operate within a constraint. We don't operate within limitations. Like,
exactly.
My whole thing with people is, we want you to live the life you want to live. And when we think about money, we think about how do we get to a place where there aren't borders and boundaries and limitations, because it's not the same anymore. The playbook that has been run for the last 40 to 100 years is over. We're in a new script. Like, traditional retirement was, hey, I grew up in New York, and 6 months out of the year I'll go to Florida and then go back. No, like, our clients are coming to us like, hey, I want to go live in Europe. I want to go live in the islands. I want to go live internationally. I want to go live in India. So, how do you play for that dynamic, right? How do you plan to live internationally? How do you work on the money movement side of things, the currency transaction, the currency swaps, the pricing, the valuations, the things like that? Like, those are the things that we work on and think about every day. And maybe that's the other difference from traditional wealth management is they don't do it. They can't do it. They have to operate within constraints that won't allow them to expand as their families expand.
Mm-hmm. And we simply do not have those. Like I said, we have a very client-focused approach. That's how we, seek to go about our business. That's why live the life we want to live. That's why that's our tagline, because that is what, when we get up every morning, that's what we focus on, not just for ourselves, but for our clients. And yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of that. Definitely be sure to join us down the road.
I will make one quick point on that. There are regulations we do play by.
Of course.
We're filed and incorporated in the state of Delaware. Like, it's not a free-for-all, so keep that in mind. But it's the ability to expand across the globe.
Yeah.
And having your family and money expand across the globe.
And that's
I think that's the new world we're in, and that's where we're going.
Yeah, and that's a very novel approach that most other firms, in our business just haven't grasped yet. And I think if that is the one thing that, people should take away from this episode and from this podcast in general, especially as we keep putting out episodes, bringing in more people, introducing you to the 10-7 family, and, if you want to come along, join the 10-7 family, is watch this space, because we are ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like with our investments, we tell people sometimes it's you have to have patient money. If you're looking at day-to-day performance, I mean, what are you really looking at the end of the day? Sometimes you're in real early into something and you just have to let it go. As we talk about with people, full cycle. Have your convictions, make your investments, let them run full cycle. Nothing's ever 100%, but if you're batting 95 to 97%, even 90 and above is fantastic, right? And that's what you want to try to do.
Yep. So that's what we're going to be helping everybody do. That's what we're doing. That's what our clients are doing. We're having a great time. Hopefully you can join us on this ride. But yeah, this has been the first episode of Crypto and Cocktails. Looking forward to the future, seeing what we're going to be doing. I'm Tyler.
I'm Tim. Cheers. Look forward to meeting all you.
Cheers. Very much cheers.
Delicious. You should have been a bartender.
Yeah, possibly.